Good morning, everyone. Looks like we've got a full house, so I think we'll start. I'm Constable Rob Carver. I'm the Public Information Officer this morning for the Winnipeg Police Service. With me as well this morning, we have Chief Danny Smythe, I'm sure you all know. Sergeant John O'Donovan on my right is from the Homicide Unit. We have Grand Chief Sheila North Wilson with us, as well as Detective Shauna Neufeld from the Missing Persons Unit and Christy Dickowitz from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. At this point, I'm going to turn the podium over to Chief Smythe to let him begin the briefing. Sir.
Good morning, everyone. As you know, Christine Wood had been missing since August 19th of last year. She was last seen leaving a hotel on Barrie Street here in the city, where she'd been staying with her parents while visiting here in Winnipeg. She was reported to missing to us just a couple of days later on August 21st, and our Missing Persons Unit took on that investigation at that time. There was certainly a lot of media coverage for Christine over the weeks and months that followed after she was reported missing, and our Missing Persons investigators received numerous unconfirmed sightings, of people that thought they had seen her. Our Missing Person Unit worked diligently to track down every lead and to try to locate her, but ultimately they had no success in locating Christine. In January, with very little new information to go on, Missing Persons collaborated with investigators from Homicide, and it was determined at that time that they would take the investigation in a different tact. The Homicide Unit took over as the lead investigator, and they, along with a number of other supporting units, worked very diligently. As you know, on April 7th, 30-year-old Brett Overby of Burrows Avenue was arrested and charged with the murder of Christine Wood. Now, you will recall that forensic units were at a residence on Burrows on March 21st. This was, in fact, the residence of Brett Overby. A criminal search warrant was executed at that time. Forensic investigators spent several days at the residence, and during that time, they discovered evidence that led them to believe that Christine Wood had been murdered at the residence. Now, Overby was arrested back then and interviewed, but he wasn't formally charged at that time. Some key evidence needed to be confirmed by lab officials. On April 6th, the forensic evidence was confirmed, and a senior official from Manitoba Justice then authorized formal charges against Overby. Now, it's with sadness that I'm here to report that Christine's body has not yet been located. I can assure the community and Christine's family and friends that we will continue on this investigation and hope to locate Christine's remains in the near future. Certainly on behalf of the investigators from both the Missing Persons Unit and the Homicide Unit, and on behalf of the service, we offer the Wood family our sincere condolences. Just once again, this is once more too often where we're here to share information about young women in our community. I want to thank, in particular, the Office of the Fire Commission in Brandon and the RCMP Identification Section for their assistance in this. I've asked Christy from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection to be here, and I've also asked Grand Chief Sheila North Wilson to be here. She's overseas and is part of the community up north, and I think it's important that we hear a perspective from the family and from the community, and I've asked Grand Chief North Wilson to provide that in a few minutes. That's all I have to report from my perspective. Sergeant John O'Donovan is here, certainly in a position to perhaps give you some more detail around the investigation, and then after that I would like an opportunity for the Grand Chief to say a word. So I don't know if there were any questions or if you just, do you have prepared?
Yeah.
Comment?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you. I don't want to rehash there what Chief Smythe said, but these types of investigations are extremely difficult, and we ended up getting involved in January of this year. A few times earlier we were consulted, and there was very little for us to act on. Our missing persons unit followed up on every lead, every possible lead that they could. And the reason that it took from August to January is that they had executed numerous warrants and production orders on various telephone companies and to determine what electronic devices that Christine would have used or would have had access to, or where she might have used the internet. And these things take a long time to come back. Some of the information comes from within Canada, some of it comes from the USA. So it's not something that we can get in a week or 2 weeks. And even though it's to try and locate a missing person, it just takes its time to get that information back. And most of that information hadn't come back until January. And when it came back, there was some blatant places that we had to go to and people that we had to speak to. Missing Persons Unit followed up with most of those interviews at that time. And once those initial interviews were done and all that information was analysed, we realised that there was more, that it was pointing in a certain direction, and it was pointing to the direction of 341 Burrows and the person who lived there. And when we searched that residence, again, it's a very, very difficult search. We were there for about 6 days. We had control of that residence for about 6 days. And we literally left no stone unturned in there. We checked that house from top to bottom, and we were able to provide evidence to the Crown's office that Christine Wood was killed in that house. Not only was she present, but she was killed within that house. Unfortunately, we don't have her body. We have no information from the person that's accused of this as to where she may be. But we have a couple of ideas, and we will be checking some places as time goes by. That's about it, really, for the investigative part. I'm not going to get into any of the evidence that was found in the house because that's going to all be before the courts. But if there are any questions.
How did Miss Wood and Mr. Overby encounter each other? What was their relationship?
They didn't have a relationship up to the 19th. They were unknown to each other. It was it could have been a chance meeting. It could have been, just a very quickly arranged meeting. But prior to that, as far as we're aware, they did not have a relationship.
Is it possible that Christine Wood is still alive?
I would say not 1 in 20 trillion chance of her being alive.
It says here that you're still looking for further information regarding the whereabouts of Overby. Did he leave province? Are you checking with the police?
That's
No.
an error that was left.
Oh,
in the notice.
okay.
So I can refresh that.
Thank you.
Last night is not.
Are you looking outside the province at all, though?
There's nothing to lead us to check outside the province, so it's something that at this point, I'd say we are not considering. But
what information did you receive that made police zone in on 341 Burrows?
It was information that was obtained through search warrants and production orders in regards to electronic devices and social media that were being used at that particular time.
You said the search at 341 was very, very difficult. Can you expand on that, why it was?
Well, it's extremely difficult because we have to make sure that we look for everything that could possibly be there. We used a number of different techniques, from chemical techniques up to physical searches and different lights and whatever, but and a lot of physical labor in there as well. So there was basically, like I say, left no stone unturned in there.
Can you speak a little bit about why police were so quiet for those 6 days while you guys were on Burrows? I know a lot of people in the area were wondering what was going on there, media asking a lot of questions.
And that's something that comes up all the time. We don't want to tell family members what we're doing, because if it turns out to be another dead end, we don't want to crush them all over again. And we don't want to also have the possibility of either the suspect or somebody close to them disturbing evidence. So basically we were not in a position to talk about what we were finding in there, and we really could not confirm that until late on April 6th.
It also says that he was charged with an unrelated offence once that search warrant was executed. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, that's before the courts right now, but it had nothing to do with this incident, absolutely nothing. It was something that came to light that evening during interviews.
I'm wondering if we could talk about her remains and why you have not been able to locate them. You kind of touched on the accused has not been cooperative, and I'm also wondering if there's a public awareness here that someone could find them.
Well, the main reason that we can't find her is because he wouldn't tell us. But would it be, if anybody else knows anything, then please come forward. If anybody finds anything in the springtime now when people are out and about again, then that would be very, very helpful.
Is this drug related, or, I mean, there was, we heard that there was maybe connection to some type of drugs?
There's nothing to suggest that it's drug-related or gang-related or anything like that. It's basically just, as far as I'm aware, at this point, with the information that I have, it's two people that met, and nothing more sinister than that.
She leaves the hotel. Can you tell us where or how they met?
I wish I could. I wish I could. I can't, I'm afraid.
Do you have any idea between, I think it's August 19th to when she may have died?
It's not a very long time period. It's probably hours, yeah. Not a very long time period.
I'm wondering if you could just elaborate that a little more on the timeline. The homicide investigators were asked to be a part of this in January, but when did you know that she was dead?
Well, we didn't know that she was dead until we got inside that house.
In March.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of evidence in the house that connected him to...
There was definitely enough to convince the Crown Attorney that charges should be laid.
Any previous history, Mr. Overby?
Not very much, if any. Yeah.
Do we know why?
No.
It's not like there's a long history between the
We could what if forever, but no, we don't know why.
Will you consider him in any other ongoing or outstanding?
At this point, there's nothing to suggest that, but it's certainly something that won't be ruled out, and that will be looked at as time progresses. But at this point, there's nothing to suggest that.
He's not giving you any indication about a location of the body, but is he being cooperative in any other way, or is he being pretty...
We have no information about where the body is from him, so...
But in terms of his dealing with you, is he being pretty tight?
That's pretty much before the courts at this point, so we won't get into that, yeah.
Can you guys speak at all about the fact that a release came out on Saturday morning fairly early, one line, and then investigators, police not available to speak any further on that?
There's a couple of reasons for that. The family, the victim's family, they needed time to grieve and wrap their heads around this, and they also needed time to tell other relatives. So for us to come out and have a big splash and everything, that would have been so unfair on them. I asked the RCMP in Oxford House to tell them in person on Friday, and I believe I spoke to the sergeant up there, and they were crushed. I mean, we did not bring them good news. Good news to them would have been, we found your daughter living in another place and she's happy and she'll get in touch sometime. We did not do that. We literally crushed their hope and made their worst nightmare a reality.
Can you speak a little bit personally how difficult these investigations are? I know you've spoken a lot in other cases, but investigations that are months ongoing and start with a missing person and ultimately end up in tragedy.
Well, they're extremely difficult for us to form a timeline, and that becomes a huge part of our evidence, and getting to know who our victim is and who our suspects are, and it makes it extremely difficult when somebody is missing. And in this case, I mean, the people were fantastic. Like, everybody wanted to find this girl, and sometimes that can hinder a little bit as well, but I certainly would not discourage it, with possible sightings and everything. I would never discourage that, but it certainly, from my point of view, it doesn't help. But
We'll limit it to maybe one more question
Yeah.
to Sergeant O'Donovan. If there's
that's
nothing
it.
else.
We're good.
Thank you.
So we've spoken a lot about the investigation, but let's not forget about the victim, Christine, her family, her community, and with me here this morning, as I mentioned, Grand Chief Sheila North Wilson will provide some context on that. Also with me is Chief Muskego from Oxford House. He came down to be here this morning, and I think it's important that we hear their perspective and hear their voice. So, as I mentioned earlier, this seems to be happening far too often, with far too much frequency, and it needs to stop. We need to hear from the families. We need to hear from the communities and hear their perspective. With that, Chief.
Can I have Christy and Audrey comes down with me too? Can you get some in? This is Christy from the Canadian Centre for Child Protection. My sister Audrey North, coincidentally, and our chief Timothy Muskego from the Bunbonabee Cree Nation, Sheila North Wilson, Disneygas from Bunbonabee, and I wanted them to come and stand with me because I know that Christine's parents, Melinda and George, and her family are probably watching or will see this, and these people have been a great source of strength for them, and so have lots of other people. They just represent a small group of people, including the Bear Clan. And I personally wanted to thank also all of them, but also the Winnipeg Police for their hard work and their dedication to this file and to all the other files that they have unfortunately been working on, and a special mention to Shauna and the Missing Persons Unit, and then also the Homicide Unit for all of their work in the RCMP and other departments. I struggled to try and figure out what I wanted to say myself, and I think I'll just leave it for now and just represent what the family wanted us to say, and it's a sad reality that we're standing here today. It's not the outcome that we hoped for. I mean, we hoped against all hope that this wouldn't be the place that we would end up with this story, but here we are. And this is a statement from George and Melinda Wood, parents of Christine. After the most difficult 8 months of our lives, we're now mourning the loss of our beautiful daughter. We are heartbroken and overwhelmed. We never imagined a life without our Christine. We want to thank our family, friends, and all the people, both in Winnipeg and at home in Oxford House, who have supported us and searched for Christine all these months. The love and kindness we have experienced has helped carry our family through this terrible time. We are grateful for the Winnipeg Police's service efforts to find our daughter and are hopeful for some form of justice. At this time, we ask for privacy as we try to come to terms with the loss of our sweet girl, Christine. And we are planning with Canadian Centre for Child Protection, the Bear Clan, and of course the Bunbonabee Cree Nation and MKO. With the family, we'll be hosting a vigil on Wednesday here in Winnipeg. They had a vigil in Bunbonabee 2 nights ago, and the family will be attending at that time, and we'll be providing more details as they come together in the next couple of days. But right now, the family is asking for a little bit of privacy, a little bit more privacy. I know that there's been a lot of contact with them up until now, but I think the reality is really setting in, and they need some time to process it, and we're doing our best to help them with that. And I appreciate all the patience and also the care and concern by the media and the public the public really stepped up this time and helped us, and I think that brings me a lot of great hope. And yeah, like I say. Do you answer any question?
Did you want to have any questions?
Sure.
Yeah. The Grand Chief is available if anybody does have a question.
Grand Chief, the police chief just said this is happening far too often with far too much frequency. Can you speak to that?
I can totally agree with that, and I think when we're questioning how this have happened, how this could have happened, it's a really good question for all of us to ask. How is this person allowed to function? He has a house, he has a car, he had a job. And society, for some reason, gave him the message that it's okay to do this to an Indigenous woman, an Indigenous, beautiful, loved girl. The only thing that the parents did wrong was to let her come out and try and explore, you know, what society has to offer. And this is what happens to her. And somewhere along the line, as a general, you know, we send messages that it's okay to do this to Indigenous women and girls. And we see this far too often. And this is a prime example of that, and it has to stop. And it's not just on us that has to stop. It has to be the greater community. And whoever is in this man's life should have intervened in some way, should have told him that this was wrong. Whatever he was carrying out and the hate he had should have been stopped a long time ago.
How long did the family sort of keep the faith that there was going to be a positive result?
I think they even have faith right now, that the miracle upon miracle that she's still alive. I mean, it's still a reality that's setting in that until they see the body, I think they have a faint hope that she's still there. But, you know, more evidence is showing up that she's not, so we have to help them with that.
Can you speak a little bit about the community support up there, the weekend vigil, and just how the families kind of coming together with their community?
The community does what the community does around these situations in our communities, in our reserves, and right away they want to be with the family. As soon as the police went to the family, community members and loved ones started gathering at the house instantly, and they've been there ever since. And they're also dealing with a suicide in the community as well. That same community is rallying around, and they had a vigil for both. And Chief Muskego and council are also, of course, very supportive in what they need. But you know, this is how communities in our reserves, most reserves, care for each other, and we'll see a little bit of that. I hope on Wednesday that, you know, just to let the public know that we're grateful and we're thankful, but also give them a chance to also have a little bit of closure for all the work that they did in efforts in finding her.
Do you feel the Wednesday vigil will be even larger than Christine would? Do you feel this is families who've lost people from, you know, all over this province might be attending this?
I hope so. I think because the body hasn't been found, this opens another painful chapter as well, because I don't know, and I hope that they find her body right away, but that's going to be another hardship to bear. And there's many, many families out there that have missing loved ones that they'll maybe never see, and this represents them too, and this represents their plight. And I think every time they hear of a situation like this, they want to be with each other, and we want to support them. And there's also plenty of survivors of this issue that will also be there, and you know, public is more than welcome to come and join.
I have a question for Chief Smythe. You talked about in previous investigations, your emotions running the gamut. You seem pretty emotional right now. Like, what's, as Chief of Police?
I think anytime we deal with a case where the victim is a child, it's difficult for all of us to process and to make sense of. I mean, children are our future. Certainly, this young woman was loved by her family, by her community. No one likes to see bad things happen to children, and this is an example of that, and it's difficult to process.
Well, I think we provided all of the information we can today. I thank you all for for attending and being patient. It's obviously a very difficult time for a lot of the people in this room, from family, from members of the community, from the team of investigators, and for our service. So thank you very much.